What's up, everyone? This is InCamp Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. I hope this cold weather has you just excited as I am because I'm getting my stuff set up. I'm shooting my bow, hanging cameras. I'm getting fired up. I'm going to do a bear hunt in New Jersey this year. That's coming up in like a month and a half. I can't wait. This is going to be a fun time. That being said, I have a boat that can't get neglected. So I still got to talk about fishing. You can't overlook the fact that fall fishing is so good. I've had a lot of fun fall fishing, and I have the guest on that does the job. This is a really cool show. There's a couple funny moments where I misunderstand a Midwestern accent, so you'll get to hear that. It's pretty comical. Overall, this guy knows how to break down a lake. He knows walleyes, he knows crappies, he knows cold water, he knows fall fishing, he knows how to fish in the midday. Man, you're going to learn a lot from this guy. And we actually talk about a little bit about the forward-facing sonar thing and, the impact its could have on fishing, but most importantly, how to use it as a tool and not to use it as a crutch. Like, if you don't know seasonal patterns of fish or habits of fish or whatever, that crap ain't helping you. And he gets to talk about that today. And I know he gets a lot of flack for using it. So I'd really like you to tune in and hear what he has to say about it because I think it's pretty insightful. Enjoy this show. This is InCamp Podcast. Today on the podcast, I have a new buddy of mine. We're going to talk some fall fishing. Mr. TJ Erickson. How are you, man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me. Today is like one of those first days where I look outside, I step outside, and I'm like, it's actually starting to feel like fall. I feel like for so long it's been so hot and muggy.
Yeah.
And now it like cooled down nice. It just has like crisp in the air. And it's like, okay, this really starts to get the gears turning for fall. And I even went and started my snowmobile up just to like, hey, get some gas running through it. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a little ahead of myself now, but
Yeah.
It's feeling good. I love fall. I mean, I think anybody that goes hunting or fishing loves fall, but it's also a tough time of year because there's too much fun stuff going on and everything's good at this time of year. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And what a year for being wet, man. I mean, I'm sure you had just as much rain in your part of the country.
Yeah. It's been just a weird summer between like cold and rainy and then like hot and muggy and just like everything in between. I feel like we haven't had much of those like 75, sunny, not super windy. It's just been some sort of extreme. Not many of the just nice days to be out on the water kind of thing.
No, for sure. And it's like, dude, the mugginess is crazy. The algae blooms on the lakes are pretty bad right now. I mean, of course, it's kind of always that way in the dog days of summer, but it's the algae blooms are pretty gross this year.
Yeah, I haven't noticed a ton, honestly, on the lakes that I've been fishing.
That's good.
And remind me where you're at again.
I'm in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And so where we're at here, it's like some of the smaller lakes we've been seeing a little bit, but honestly hasn't been either that or I've just avoided it. And, I'm not guiding anymore either. So when I was guiding, I was on the water every day.
Yeah.
Now I'm not on the water nearly as much. So I'm not quite as in tune to some of that either, but it hasn't been terrible for some of the algae blooms around here, at least.
Yeah. You're in Minnesota?
Yeah. Yep. Kind of like north central Minnesota.
Yeah. I mean, you can't mistake it. You got the Minnesota accent there,
which is funny because it's like so much less than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Like I grew up right on the Canadian border, like as far north as you can get in Minnesota. Yeah. And I went to college in a town called Grand Rapids, which is like what most people think of as like up north Minnesota.
Yeah.
And I got down there and they're like, man, are you Canadian? You have a Canadian accent. And I'm like, here, I'm still in like the Northwoods and people are thinking I have a Canadian accent. So since then I've really been able to acclimate to more of the central Minnesota versus the way up north in the sticks and the taking less of the A's and you betchas and
well, I mean, you have two accents in the country that you automatically know are friendly, like the Carolinas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're from the Midwest and you have the Minnesota accent,
Yep, the O's and all that good stuff.
Yeah. But dude, thanks for coming on. This is going to be fun. So TJ, why don't you go ahead and kind of just fill me in on your background? What do you do for a living? How did you get your start in fishing, and what's your style?
Yeah, you bet. No, like I said, I grew up on the Canadian border up in a little town called Roseau. It's like a town of like 2,600. If you're familiar with Lake of the Woods at all, one of obviously the biggest walleye factories in the world. So I grew up fishing Lake of the Woods, which was obviously awesome.
Yeah.
But it didn't give me a lot of variety. I wasn't fishing crappies or bass or pretty much anything but walleyes. And so I caught so many walleyes in my life, more than most people, but I didn't get the experience or like the vastness of some of the other things. So early on, walleyes were obviously a big part of my life, but also I grew up on this little river called the Roseau River, and basically from time I was like 8 or something like that,
Nice.
me and my neighbor buddy Dave, we had like a little floating dock that we made for behind our houses.
Uh-huh.
And we started out with like this little inflatable raft that we'd go out every single day, and then we were able to get a little trolling motor adapter for it. And so then we put on a trolling motor, and then my parents let us use our little 12-foot boat with a 2-horse on it. And we had the dam on one side of our house, and so we couldn't go that side. So we had to go one direction, and I would go that same direction every day, all summer long, fish the same spots, catch the same pike. So it was primarily pike. Every once in a while you'd catch a walleye or something else,
Yeah.
but 99% pike. So we catch the same fish every day. So I was a little river rat growing up, just literally on the water all day, every day. Didn't matter. So that, and then as soon as I got my license, my dad let me take our big boat, which is, now that I think of it, and like now being a parent, I'm like, he was a little bit crazy, but thank you. But like as 16-year-old, let me go on Lake of the Woods, which is a gigantic body of water and can be so
Yeah.
dangerous. And
Yeah.
we had this like 1975 Luntai, so it's like you just never knew when it was going to work or not. So like a little bit crazy, but also so grateful that he let me do that, because that kind of paved the way for, you know, again, my love for fishing. And obviously
Right.
we went out together. He owned a hardware store, so things got busy at times, but we still got out a lot on the river,
Yeah.
in the lake. So yeah, that was that. And then growing up, I just did a ton of fishing. When I got to college, I actually didn't fish nearly as much. I got huge into waterfall hunting. I was going to school in North Dakota, so obviously that's like prime time waterfall country. And so, got
Like
heavy into that.
just for photography and stuff, or
For school, for like my education. So
okay.
then yep. So I went to a little college there, and like I said, just got crazy into the waterfall hunting and like ducks and geese. And I got my trailer with all my decoys, and like I went. That's one thing about me, is I don't do anything like halfway. So like if I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna go in.
I
Even though I was
totally
a poor
thought you
college
said
student.
I thought you said waterfall hunting. There's there's the I'm
Oh
like, oh,
no,
waterfowl. Oh yeah, no, I'm like, okay,
waterfowl.
that's
Yeah, sorry, I don't know if that was my accent, but yeah, into bird hunting. There we go. Um, So I was chasing the ducks and geese pretty hard. I was like,
nice.
that's the photography comment. Now I'm getting that.
Yeah, yeah,
But so I was like heavy into that. I didn't do hardly any fishing.
yeah,
I was close to like Devil's Lake, but it was just easier for me to go bird hunting.
sure.
And so, yeah, got into that heavy. And then, after I graduated, my wife and I were moved to where I currently live in Park Rapids, Minnesota. So like north central Minnesota.
Okay.
Um, and it was decent, okay waterfall hunting, but I'm like, I don't know, like I can only do this for couple months at most out of the year, and like I can fish all year round actually.
Yeah,
And so I got a boat, and I started getting heavy into fishing, or back into fishing, I should say. And I started learning this area, and it's like, this is so different than back home. Like Lake of the Woods, it's an amazing fishery, and honestly, if you're just going to want to go catch fish, like it's not a terribly challenging fishery.
right.
Like we went out so many times with no electronics, no nothing, and we just go drift into the wind and catch walleyes. And like move here, it's a whole different ball game. Like even with all the stuff that I have nowadays, like when I was guiding in kind of the thick of the summer, if we would go and catch a handful of walleyes in the guide trip, I was excited. Like that was great.
Yeah,
And so it was just a big learning curve, learning walleyes in the weeds. Like, wait, walleyes can hang out in the weeds. They don't just hang out in whatever the right depth is out on Lake of the Woods. And
sure.
um, so yeah, that was a big learning curve here. And I am a teacher, so that's kind of like my full time gig, and then do the YouTube stuff and some photography stuff on the side. But that was kind of a nice compliment. I started teaching, and there's like a half dozen teachers or so in the Park Rapids area that are also guides. So I got to know some of them, and they knew how much I was nuts about fishing, and I was doing walleye leagues and doing that
Yeah.
kind of stuff, just trying to learn and spend as much time on the water as possible. We didn't have kids at the time, so I could just really soak it in. And so they had kind of asked me like, "Hey, have you ever thought about guiding?" I was like, "Well, actually, that was originally kind of my plan. Was I was thinking I was going to live up in Roseau and guide on Lake of the Woods and teach it during the school year, and now we're in Park Rapids, so kind of what my plan was. But I can't do it around here." They're like, "Oh no, you should jump in. We'll be around to help you out too." And so I jumped right in, and it was definitely too early in the fact of like, oof, I had a lot of learning to do. So it was like I started and I started getting guide trips right away, and thanks to like some of the social media and just online presence stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, these fish are changing so much day by day. I don't have, these guys had 20 years of experience on all these lakes. Like, oh, this isn't happening. I'll try this. And I didn't have that. I had like, maybe a handful of bites. And if it wasn't going. And so basically I was spending, as soon as it was light out, I was out on the water before my trips scouting. I do, 1, 2, sometimes 3 trips a day, not often, but usually 1, maybe 2 trips a day.
Yeah.
Then in between or after, I was on the water until it got dark. And then I'd come home, in June around here, it's dark till 10:30, it seems like. So get
Yeah.
home and regroup until about midnight, get everything resituated and get up at 4:30 the next day. So I did that for, I think, 1 or 2 summers, and it was great learning. I mean, I've never learned so fast in my life than when you got to put people on fish and you're spending that much time in the water.
Sure.
But poof, that was a grind.
Yeah,
And
that's a
so,
real grind.
yeah, so I was teaching and guiding in the summers for, I don't know, 4, no, 6 years actually. I taught for a few years without guiding. And I did that for like 6 years. And then towards the end of that, I started my YouTube channel. Um, and I started that as honestly a way to promote my guide business. Like, oh, put some YouTube videos out. People be searching fishing for this area, and I'll be able to get more business. And
Yeah.
that worked. But also, like, it started gaining traction because I'm a teacher, so the education side of things come pretty naturally. So I was like teaching people how to do things, um, and so naturally it started to pick up some steam. And I was like, oh wait, you can start making money at this. Like, I didn't know you could make. I thought people just did this for free, and I
Yeah.
was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Then companies start reaching out, and just kind of the ball starts rolling with that. And I'm like, it's a whirlwind for me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, how that's going. And then, along the lines, a couple good buddies that kind of helped me along the way. Nick Linder and Brett McComas, they're 2 guys that do a bunch of YouTube stuff. They're obviously way more into it and way earlier than I was. So they kind of, I don't know what got their gumption to do this, but they kind of befriended me and like, you know, let me join the crew, and we do some trips together. Honestly, we have such a good time together. It's a bummer that we're all so stinking busy because we just don't get to do enough stuff together. And
Yeah.
now when we do get together, it's like essentially work related. We're like filming, so we like don't get to hang out. And so again, huge props to those guys. They've been a huge sounding board for me of like, hey, what do I do in this situation? Like, whether it's contract stuff, whether it's fishing industry stuff, whether it's
Uh-huh.
whatever, because that's not the world I grew up in.
Yeah.
I grew up in little old Roseau. Like, we didn't even have like the outdoor channel because we grew up in the sticks, so I like didn't watch a lot of media
Yeah.
growing up. So I was just like a whole new world to me. So me and Nick are kind of infamous for having very long phone calls, just talking fishing industry,
Nice.
all that kind of stuff. And whenever my wife hears me that I'm on the phone with Nick, she's like, okay, we'll see you in a couple of hours. Gives me an eye roll or whatever. But so he's been a great resource, and Brett has as well. So they honestly were a huge catalyst just to growth. And obviously when you're associated with guys like that too, that's a huge bump for me. So again, just huge thank you to those guys. But yeah, that kind of pushed things to kind of where they're at now, where I'm teaching during the school year. And I still do videos during the school year as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm big into ice fishing. I love ice fishing,
Yeah.
but it's obviously a lot more challenging. But I hit it pretty hard in the summertime with the whole content side of things. And my wife is a photographer, and so then I started learning a little bit of the photography side of things too. So I do a little bit of
Yeah.
contracted photography work as well.
That's
Yeah, which is super cool. So yeah, there's just a lot of little irons in the fires as far as that kind of stuff goes. Um, so she's running her own business. So yeah, we just had our first child, our daughter, in
oh,
December.
congrats, man.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously changes life pretty quickly. And this summer has been an adventure because this is her busy time. She's a wedding photographer and
Uh-huh.
portrait. She's like when she started her business, she does it such a nice job, it just blew up. And so we thought we scaled back enough for this summer, and we're quickly realizing we did not. But how do you know? How do you know when
Yeah.
you've never done the parenting thing before? And
Yeah, you don't,
um,
man. You just kind of learn as you
grandma's
go.
grandma's been huge, coming in clutch, coming over a lot and helping out so we can edit and that kind of thing. And so, um, yeah, that's kind of been the journey for me as far as like where I've been, what I've been doing, what I'm doing now. I probably, obviously missed a lot of stuff, but it's been fun. I never, if you'd have told me I would have been in this world, like I'm kind of an old man with a lot of
Yeah.
this stuff. Like
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like the social media and some of that kind of stuff is natural to me. I would say like the teaching, and I enjoy the creative outlet of like the video side of things.
Yeah.
Um, but none of like the social media stuff is like, I would say, crazy natural to me. So it's like
Yeah.
it's been a learning curve. I never thought this would be the area that I would be in. I am like, there's still times where I'm like, man, you just let me turn the cameras off and let me just fish and never tell anybody about anything. Like, but also now being able to make money doing what I love. And also I get so many people that reach out through Instagram, on YouTube, on whatever, and just be like,
Yeah.
hey, I tried this and like we caught so many more fish, or like I see how it helps people
Yeah.
and like the experience that they have, or like they got their kids out, they were catching fish, and I'm like, I don't know, that just like I get those messages and I just feel like a little pump of adrenaline. Like
I mean,
that's a
that's
big
why you
reason
do
why
it.
I'm doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, like
absolutely. Eh,
so yeah, I got to watch a lot of those videos when I was trying to learn this area. I watched a ton of videos like the Tom Bowleys and like those
Yeah.
people, like
Yeah.
where I was watching them to like learn. And so I was like, I want to share that I got given to me, but I also want to share that with other people because this has been a huge help for me.
It's so important. I actually just did a podcast with a buddy of mine not too long ago, Chad Sylvester, and we were talking about like the impact you're making on people. And this is kind of like a theme with my pod. We ended up talking about this at some point in time because
Hmm.
it's important to me, but it's important to all the guests that I have on. Is like, what are you passing on to the next? Right? Where?
Hmm.
What? How old are you?
I just turned 34 actually
So we're
2 days
not.
ago.
I'm 37, so we're not that far
Hmm.
apart.
Yep.
And I feel like our age, it's so important to like pass it to our kids. You're
Hmm.
talking about your dad letting you do all this stuff. How
Hmm.
many parents let their kids do stuff like that anymore?
Right? Not
It
many.
doesn't happen. It doesn't
Probably
happen.
probably for good reason, but
Yeah,
yeah, also
yeah.
in the same respect, like
Well, we're in a
shaped
different
who I am.
age. Yeah, we're in a different age now, but it's
Hmm.
important to pass on the stuff that we're passing on, not only because we want it to be around for a long time,
Right.
but like, we were just in this big public lands battle not
Yeah.
long ago,
Hmm.
you make people like you make a difference in like in a big picture, but you're obviously making a difference to people even on one-to-one because you're answering those
Hmm.
messages and
Hmm.
doing that kind of stuff. And I said to Chad when we had this conversation, if you have an impact on one person, even if it's, you know, just one, for
Hmm.
people that are doing this on small scale, imagine them having an impact on one person too, and one person after
Right.
that. And that one-to-one interaction is very strong in what we do. You're doing it on large scale, but you're teaching kids at a grade school level. You're teaching people when they come to you after the fact, one-to-one. That's awesome. And I like that you really care about that. And it's
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it's a huge, I mean, I don't know how many, like there's been many times, I get so worked into like this and I just like go, 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 go. And I get so
Yeah.
like tunnel vision sometimes, or like really I have to take a step back often and just be like, man, God has blessed me so much in like the gifts and abilities and the platform that I have,
Yeah.
like that I don't deserve this. Like I never should have been able to get something like this. Like I'm just a little schmuck from up in the northwoods here, like I don't deserve any of this. And so like I need to steward that opportunity well, and not just, it gets so easy to like think about it selfishly and like what can I get out of this? What can I make? What can I, and it's like it's easy to get caught up in that kind of thing and realize like I've been given this platform and these abilities for a reason, and like I want to utilize those well and make a difference in people's lives too. So yeah, no, I
Yeah.
appreciate that you circle back to that often on the podcast.
Yeah. The other thing that you mentioned too is like the tech side of it. I'm not really tech either, man. Like figuring
Mm-hmm.
out algorithms and how to use social media. I'm the same way. Like sometimes I'm like,
Hmm.
oh, just shut it off. But there is a reason that we have a platform. There
Right.
is a reason. I mean, there is a reason that we're trying to get involved in the stuff like this and to talk about it, because when you break it down, you're like, well, you just fish, but that's not what it's about. It's the
Right.
activity that you're doing, and learning something hard. I mean, for me, walleyes is really hard. So, you
Oh, yeah,
know,
it still is. It still
yeah.
is. It never gets easier, I would say.
But doing hard things is really good for your health. It's good for your brain. But
Mhm,
then it's also good to like take that hard thing and apply it to other stuff in your life. You know,
mhm,
I love that background.
mhm.
You got a really good story.
Yeah, it's, it's definitely a whirlwind sometimes. You need to take a step back to appreciate it. My wife is awesome about, like, reminding me some of that stuff, and she's, our rock for our family, and just she's so good about that because I need to be checked not every once in a while, often. I need to be kept and checked often because I
Oh,
can, like I
we're
said, I'm just a
dudes.
go, go, go person.
Yeah,
I'm like, put
we're
my head
dudes.
down
Yeah.
and go.
I'm
Uh,
there with you. Like, hey, how about you put that stuff down for a minute, you know?
right. Yeah.
So would you if somebody asked you, would you call yourself a walleye fisherman? Or are you a generalist fisherman?
I would say that's a hard question. I like to be all species.
Yeah.
Um, my content is very walleye centric.
Yeah.
Some like crappies, some lake trout, some that kind of stuff, but very walleye centric because, and I do love walleyes. Like I grew up on it, so like
Yeah.
I would definitely say that's my cup of tea, and I would be a walleye fisherman. But I also just love anything.
Yeah.
But one thing about with YouTube, they like to put you into a certain area,
Yep.
and they like you to stay in that area. Um, and so I have found like, hey, the whole walleye education thing works. And when I step outside of that too much, like it they puts it out to my audience that likes watching walleye videos, and they don't have maybe the same response because they want walleye tips.
Right.
And so it's yeah, I would say I'm really a walleye fisherman as far as the YouTube and content goes. But in my heart, I like chasing everything, but more centered on walleyes.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of the YouTube content, when you get somebody that's walleyes, it's like it's walleyes and crappies.
Mhm.
They kind of intermix. I feel like you can catch them on the same baits too if you're in the right area, you know?
Well, and honestly, for me, I don't do a lot of crappie stuff in the summer. I mostly do crappie in the winter,
Yeah.
and like the walleye bite can get super tough in the winter, and it's like these very small bite windows. So like the content and like not a lot changes. Like
Yeah.
it's a pretty steady, similar bite throughout the whole winter. So it's kind of tough to keep things fresh on the education side. Where the crappie thing can be a lot of fun to showcase. And then like before the season starts, we can't target walleyes in the springtime where there's open water.
Yeah.
And so I'm able to get out and chase crappies right away when there's open water and get some more content out. And it's a fun, I don't know, it's a really fun. That was actually the very first YouTube video I think I put out was a crappie video.
Yeah.
Um, and so yeah, they kind of work hand in hand as far as like the seasons and that kind of stuff go.
So one thing that I've noticed from your videos, like I mean, you're doing the live scope thing, but one thing that I think is you take your knowledge of fishing, not like you're not a gamer, like you're not just
Hmm.
chasing your live scope everywhere. I think it's cool because hey, the fish are likely to do this type of thing at this year and relate to this type of structure or this type of cover vegetation or whatever it is. And that's one
Hmm.
thing you're doing in your YouTube videos is teaching people about the structure and what kind of grass you like. One of the latest videos you're talking about cabbage patches and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's so important, and people are missing that part of it because it's without knowing the fish, you're not really fishing, you're just casting, you know what I mean?
Right.
So
Yeah.
what's your move when you're teaching somebody how to just kind of be a well-rounded fisherman? What's something you think is important for them to know right away?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the things I'm such like a visual learner, like that's how I learn. I know not everybody's like that, but whenever I get people that reach out and say stuff about my videos, very often they mention like, dude, I love your map overlays. I love your visuals. I love your, and I put that in there because that's what helps me make sense of it.
Yeah.
Um, and so I've had so many people be like, like, it makes sense to me now. Like I've spent so much time chasing these fish and like, now I understand what they're truly doing. And yeah, like you said, obviously you look at any comments on shorts or reels or YouTube videos, you see a lot of people talking about live scope and, oh yeah, you don't know how to fish, you don't know how to do this. Like that just comes with the territory. You got to have pretty thick skin
Sure.
um, when it comes to using forward facing sonar. But I will say it is like such a tool that you can use. I've learned so much about fish behavior and patterns, and it's like it's not like just going out there and driving around and finding a dot and just tossing at. It's like my mind is going at 100 miles per hour every time because I'm seeing these fish. I'm seeing where they're located. I'm knowing where their structure is. I'm knowing what they're doing, how they're moving on this structure, how they're relating to it. And it's like, even just talking about it, you can see like everything's just turning. It's
Yeah.
not like it's just like you said, a video game where you're just like, duh, oh, cast at mark. Okay, I'm gonna go catch this fish, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's like always things turning. I started guiding when there wasn't forward facing sonar. And so
Yeah.
like I had to learn maps were huge to me, like map breakdowns and how are these fish relating to this stuff and
Right.
learning, 2D and side imaging. And that's how I learned.
Right.
Now forward facing sonar just like really expedites the learning process and helps you learn so much more and how these fish react. But knowing I would say like number one is just you gotta know where fish are,
Yeah.
and so knowing seasonal patterns is a huge thing for me. That's how I kind of started. Like, okay, this is the general type of thing that these fish are going to be doing this time of year. And then the more you learn, the more you realize, like, oh my gosh, they're doing lots of things many times a year. Like they're not just always doing one thing. So then it's just
Hmm.
like kind of blows the lid off of like, okay, I got to be more creative with some of this stuff, or I got to maybe think outside the box or be willing to try something else. Don't just get locked into one thing. So going in with an open mind is huge. And then like just understanding the seasonal patterns and then utilizing whatever technology you have because, obviously technology gets a bad rap nowadays, but really it's just a tool. Whether it's 2D forward facing sonar, whether it's side imaging, they all can be used to your advantage.
Yeah.
And, one thing I didn't realize how lucky we are. I don't know how it is over there, but like all of our lakes are so well mapped. Like
Yeah.
they're very well mapped. And I was just chatting um, with Clayton Schick. I don't know if you ever watched much of his stuff.
I haven't seen him.
Um,
No.
he's a big Canadian YouTuber, catches giant lake trout.
Okay.
He's awesome. If you're looking for big fish, that's the guy to watch.
Yeah.
But I was talking to him, and he was just saying like, "Oh yeah, you should go to this lake." And one of the things he mentioned was like, it's very well mapped. And that doesn't even cross my mind. He's up in like northern Saskatchewan, so like half
Yeah.
their stuff isn't mapped. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, that's something that he thinks about that I don't think about. I'm just so used to having maps. And like,
Right.
I went up on a little backcountry trip a couple weeks ago now, and like the lake wasn't mapped. And it's like, oh yeah, that's a whole different dynamic when you don't have maps. And like
Yeah.
you gotta learn, even with forward facing sonar, like, when it's a big lake, you got a lot of ground to cover if you want to find a hump or if you want to find
Sure.
whatever it is. So yeah, I know that was kind of a little bit off topic or a little bit of a rant, but
No,
that's
man, that's
how
what
my
this is
squirrel
for.
brain works sometimes. It's
Yeah.
those are utilizing those pieces of technology that you have.
No, I think you answered the question well because eh, we're connecting it to your real connection to the water. I mean, you grew up doing this without all this stuff. And
Mhm,
I think it's important you said it's a tool. And I am like I'm on the fence. I don't have scope or whatever.
mhm,
I'm not really opposed to it. I'm not really for it. I get worried about it in like competitive things and stuff like that because I mean, I'm not saying every angler does it, but if you're using it to compete and there's not a lot of rules to it, like, are you using it how you should be using it as a tool? But it's the same
mhm,
thing with uh, cell cameras. It's the same thing with people that are allowed to bait deer and bears. Like, you can take advantage or you
right,
can use it as a tool with an advantage, but with the mindset that it's a tool because without using it as a tool, it stops being a story, right? Like you don't have
mhm,
that big fish that got away story the same as, if you're just out fishing and you're just video gaming, it's not the same thing. You're using it as a tool and you're speaking to it as a tool. Like you just
mhm,
said that you need to know the seasonal patterns. And
mhm,
here's where we step in and talk about your connection to fall fishing because this is one of the big transitions of the year, right? Like
mhm,
summer to fall is huge. I
mhm,
don't know how you feel about it. I'm really I call myself a bass fisherman. And we're getting to the point where it's just about to tip over to that fall stuff. What do you think your connection is to fall fishing? Are you pretty big into the fall thing? Is it your favorite time of year to be out?
I love fall fishing, and sadly enough, it's probably the time that I get to fish the least
Yeah.
because this is when school starts.
Yeah, yeah. You have to
And back when I was hunting a lot more, like, okay, then I was trying to get out and chase some birds. And, we go to deer camp for deer hunting. And, it's like just all the things when I was doing some trapping and just like all the things line up. And it's like, it's too much to do. But no, I do still do quite a bit of fall fishing. Um, and it can be such a fun time of year. Around here, a lot of people will target walleyes early in the year for like from opener until, I don't know, the end of May. And then they kind of give up in the summertime,
Yeah.
which ends up being one of my favorite times to fish now is like midsummer. And then they'll kind of pick it back up in the fall because those are quote unquote some of the easier bites. Um, and now again, talking with forward facing sonar, like it being a tool, we've learned so much about these fish, and it's not necessarily the easiest bites. It's like those were just bites that were more accessible,
Yeah.
because these fish aren't either roaming over suspended waters or like, they're shallower. You can drag a Lindy rig, you can cast, you can do some of those things
Mhm.
in the spring and summer, or in the spring and fall, sorry, that maybe aren't as doable in the summer. So I would say it's um, can be notoriously one of the best times of year to get back into fishing. The walleyes notoriously are putting the feed bag on and doing that kind of
Mhm.
thing. We've been on some absolutely amazing fall bites, and
Yeah.
on certain lakes, there's definitely like a much better fall bite. The fall bite super picks up. Like a lake that I'm really close to is Leech Lake,
Okay.
and that's it's a
That's a
walleye
giant walleye.
factory.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, walleye factory for sure. And like this summer, I haven't fished it much this summer. I fished it once. I did one video on it this spring. Um, but I haven't fished it much this summer, but it sounded like the bite was pretty tough a lot of the summer. But the
Yeah.
fall bite picks up again, and so I don't know how much you want to dive into like locations or tactics or anything like that right now. But yeah, I like fall fishing. I just wish I could do it more.
Yeah. Well, I think I do kind of want to dive into that. And I think I want to kind of get your take on how you would break down a new lake. I'm going to tell you why.
Mhm.
I live on a small lake. It's a little private community. It's not mapped well, but I know it pretty well because I've been fishing it a lot, bass, crappies, whatever. So I'm only going to relate this lake because, maybe it'll help somebody kind of break down whatever new lake they're fishing on. But in the summertime, they spray for weeds around the edges because, the grass mats, and then people don't like it in their boats and whatever. So you're getting a lot of like mussel bar. You have hard rock points. Man-made structure with porcupine cribs are usually around the bottoms of the points in 15 to 20 feet of water. And then you have the outside weed edges that end up being around those points. So it's kind of like, other than the headwater is 3 to 10 feet, like it kind of tapers off to 10 feet. And then you have your normal, like, kind of just silt fill into the edges. And then it kind of just turns into a big bowl down to 90 feet. Most of the stuff we're fishing in, you have like little flats off the edge to drop off. So how do you break apart a new lake, maybe like that, when we're getting into the fall? So maybe first, when does your fall start for you? Are you looking at temperature, daylight changes, stuff like that?
Yeah, to touch on the first one, when does fall start for me? That's super variable. Um, you know, because every year is so different.
Yeah.
And every piece, there's a lot. For a long time, I used to just like strictly go off water temp.
Hmm.
But realizing how much these fish go off like photo periods and like just weather patterns, and there's so many things. Like every once in a while, you'll get like a random cold front or a storm that moves in. Almost like, okay, this was kind of the transition of like this fall bite. So honestly, I kind of let the fish tell me when the bite is happening. And
Yeah.
again, not to go back to it too much, but forward facing sonar makes it so much easier to realize that now. Like, okay,
Yeah.
these fish are just not in this area,
Right.
and you can find that out in 20 seconds versus fishing it for an hour.
Right.
Um, and so I kind of let the fish tell me when it is. I do feel like, and it varies for me, like by like, I'm in an area, there's like a ton of lakes.
Yeah.
We're like big time lakes country. So every lake fishes so differently. Um, so that's a little bit challenging as well. Like some lakes will be starting to fish fall patterns, mid-September, where
Yeah.
some it like is closer to October.
Yeah.
Um, and so it really kind of varies for me. And I don't even necessarily like to give like water temp anymore. But
Sure.
for me, it's more so that downward trend, that when that downward trend is starting to be consistent,
Yeah. That
I
makes
notice
sense.
it. Yeah, like that downward trend, like fish start to sense that the days get shorter. So September I would say is like the start of it for me, but then it really gets heavy into like October.
Yeah.
And then I'll keep the boat out as long as I possibly can. Like sometimes it'll be ice forming on some lakes, and I'm out fishing on open water on another lake, and so for me, when fall starts, kind of that steady temperature decrease on the water temps, days getting shorter are like probably my two biggest key factors. And then like I said, sometimes you'll see a storm or a cold front move in, and that kind of just like expedites the process.
Right.
And so then when you're talking like breaking down a new lake, so I would say that lake that you were talking about is very different than anything that I fish for a
Hmm.
couple of reasons. So when you were you saying, is it like a reservoir type thing where there's like an inflow, or like what were you?
Yeah, it's a man-made lake. So
Okay.
yes, there
Yep.
is like, runoff ditches and stuff like that. It's not like a
Yep.
corpse engineer lake, which I do live close to. I have a core engineer lake close to me. But it kind of sets up like that, but not
Yep.
really. It is colder water because it's a mountain lake. So it's,
Hmm.
if we're comparing like a little bit lower land to this, my water temp is probably 8 degrees cooler than
Yep.
just 6 miles south of me.
Yep. So yeah, there's a lot of factors. And then like we also are not allowed to do any sort of man-made structure.
Okay.
So like when you were talking, what
Oh
did you call it? The
wow.
porcupine?
Yeah, there's like porcupine cribs. They're just
Yeah, I've seen
basically,
them.
yeah, they're
Yeah, but
cool.
we
They're
we
cool.
can't do anything. Every once in a while you hear stories of people dumping Christmas trees or
Yeah.
dumping stuff in the dark of the night or whatnot. But we are just illegal in Minnesota to do that. And so like for that reason, like that would fish very differently. And so, when you mentioned the species, probably, the crappies would be one that I would obviously target.
Yeah.
Fall is like such a fun time for crappies,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
The spring was great for, I've never caught
Yeah.
crappies like that.
And so like fall can be a super fun time, but it can also be a super dangerous time in the fact of this is where we have to talk. And I was going to mention this when you were talking forward facing sonar. Like, yes, it's a tool.
Yeah.
And I get all these comments on my videos and on my reels of like, forward facing sonar is ruining fishing. It's like, no, it never will. The anglers are what's ruining fishing, just like for the rest of time.
Right.
Like, if we are not good stewards of utilizing that technology, then yes, we will ruin the fishing. We will
Right.
can outfish lakes. We can whatever it is. And so, I talk about that a lot in my videos of recognizing depths as far as like barrel trauma. I'm not like a musky guy, so I don't worry
Yeah.
about like water temps quite as much.
Right.
As like the musky guys pay attention to. And obviously that's a whole nother topic when you're talking forward facing sonar and muskies. But
Right.
you know, in those fall, the crappies just start to school up into big schools and they roam over the basins. And so I like to find basins that are, topping out in 20 to 30 feet.
Yeah.
Um, so that lake might be a little more unique where like that 90-foot depth stuff might be kind of tricky, where if there's some like flats or some like secondary basins
Yeah.
in that 20 to 30-foot range, or sometimes even in that 30 to 40-foot range, but then those, in order to target those for me, those crappies have to be suspended
Yeah.
up pretty good, because I don't like to target crappies in the fall like deeper than like 25.
Yeah.
Just because they're so fickle. Like same thing in the winter, like they can be so sensitive to barotrauma or
Sure.
any of that. And people say like, oh, just reel them up slower. And it's like, well, I was talking there's one study that I was reading, and it was like the fish would have to be reeled up over the course of like 3 hours
Yeah.
to actually like not have the barotrauma effects. And so I'm
Right.
like, well, or if you're gonna go out and keep, like that's fine. Like go keep all the ones you catch.
Yeah.
Once you catch your meal, like then be done.
Yeah.
I have no problem if you want to target deep fish if you're keeping all of them.
Yeah. For
But
sure.
if you're going to potentially catch giants that you want to put back, or like little ones, well, then maybe don't target those fish, because there's going to be some fish that are going to die. So I like to target those basins like that in the fall. So if I was like fishing that lake like you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
or going to any new lake in the fall, and I'm going to target, like you were saying, crappies, um, I would look for like those 20 to 30-foot basins or flats, and
Yeah.
just start driving around, looking at the bottom with like my side imaging or down imaging, and like see where it starts to get muddy, because that's when those bugs will start to come up, and that's when those crappies start roaming over there, and they get in big schools. So then again, once you get your forward facing sonar out, or even a side imaging, you see this a lot with side imaging, they stick out like a sore thumb
Yeah.
on that softer bottom, or when they're in those bigger groups. So that can be a super fun bite in the fall. When I'm talking walleyes on a new body of water, that is super variable for me, and that kind of takes time. So, for example, there's a number of lakes in the Minnesota area, like Leech Lake, Winnebagoshish. Some of those bigger lakes, they get like
Mm-hmm.
this classic shallow fall bite where they're in, less than 10, less than 12 feet of water on these shallow sandy flats. You drive it with your side imaging and you can see a big pot of fish. You cast a jig and minnow to them and they thump it. Super fun, super classic bite. On a lot of
Yeah.
our deeper, clear, natural lakes, I don't see that shallow bite as much.
Okay.
So for me, it kind of like break down what the lake is like first. Like those lakes have that bite. So you kind of have to identify um, the bottom or the bite first because there's
Okay.
so many bites going on in the fall.
Right.
Um, and so, I might just even rip through a few bites that I see in the fall if that works right now. Um, and so, one of the bites, if there's still any weeds, weeds are dominant all summer long. Like you're catching walleyes in the weeds all summer long.
Okay.
And the longer those weeds stay around, like I still find a ton of walleyes around the weeds. And I notice a lot of them are work towards those deeper edges more than in the weeds as those things start to die off. So that's a big one. Another classic walleye one that I love in the fall is deep structure. So like 20 to 30 foot humps topping out in that kind of range.
Okay.
Classic walleye spots, like kind of a similar summer pattern, but sometimes even deeper, closer to that 30-foot range.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of my favorites. Another one is like just hard bottom flats.
Yeah.
So like if you're looking for an area, again, my primary one is like 20 to 30 feet in the fall, like just a hard bottom flat. They just like love to roam out there for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And the bite that I've been doing a ton lately, and I've done a lot of videos on it, is the suspended bite, where they're just out roaming. I mean, they're doing it all summer long, but I feel like it really can hit heavy in the fall too. Is like these walleyes will just go and suspend chasing, ciscos or whatever. Yeah, some of these like pelagic bait fish that they're kind
Mm-hmm.
of chasing. And so that can be a super fun bite. One of my like, I just like am even talking about it now. I'm getting hyped up. I am so excited. Rainy Lake is a lake that I've done a lot of fishing
Oh,
on.
nice. Yeah.
Um,
Good lake.
one of my favorite fisheries. So many big walleyes. This has been probably one of the best summers that has ever been up there for big walleyes, and this is like the only summer I haven't been up there yet. So I'm a little kicking myself.
Yeah.
Me and Nick and Brett do this series called the Walleye Cup.
Okay.
Um, that we first one we filmed was last year. It's like a competition between us three,
Yeah.
and so we did it on Rainy Lake, and it was just like this such awesome suspended bite. And so every year I do this trip up there, and you just use these big paddle tails, like 4+ inch paddle tails.
Yeah.
You know, literally, I could go up there with a half-ounce Northland smelt nader jig in like a 3 or 4 hook and a 4-inch paddle shad, and I super glue that bad boy on, and I could go with one rod and that bait, and that's all I would need for the whole trip.
That's
Last
fun.
year we went out and we do this trip over MEA, so we went out for a couple days, and I think we had like close to 50 walleyes over 25 inches, up
Nice.
to like 30 and a half. And so like that's, again, I'm getting on a tangent because I just get so amped up about that bite. It's so
Do it.
fun.
Yeah. Talk about it. Yeah.
But that's a super fun suspended bite, and that one's a little bit different. So like now on that lake, it's a heavy suspended bite, so you're looking for like 30 to 40 foot flats, but they're down 20 feet, 15 feet
Okay.
from the surface. And so like they're just roaming out over that deep water, and they're just down chasing smelt is a lot of it, what it is up there. And this happens on a lot of lakes around home too here, like these smaller lakes. But it's just very prevalent there, and it's just an awesome bite. Or, sometimes you're finding humps. Same, it might be 60 feet of water, but there's a hump
Mm-hmm.
that comes up to like 50 or 40. Like they
Yeah.
will still relate to that structure, but they'll only be down 15 feet. So
Yeah.
you're not risking barrel trauma. You're not risking any of those types of adverse side effects. And then even another crazy thing is like these walleyes can tell where those transitions are, like a soft bottom to hard bottom transition. Sometimes they'll be in, like I said, that 40 feet, and there's this like transition, and those walleyes hang out above there. So they might be
Okay.
20, 30 feet from that transition above it, but they're still like hanging around in there.
They
So that's
just
some
know
of
where
those.
it's at.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But some of those suspended bites can be super fun. So a little bit of it is just like going around and kind of like checking off the list of like, maybe I'll start checking weeds. Okay. I'm not like the weeds are too dead, or there's just not fish around these weeds. All right. Gonna check that off the list. No weeds. Then I'll move on to maybe some structure. Like, okay, are these fish out deeper? Are they around structure? Okay. If it has deep structure, they're often going to be around there. That's like a almost 100% pattern on these lakes.
Yeah.
And then I'll maybe go to, okay, are they in the shallow sandy flats? And then maybe go to, okay, if they're not there, check out suspend, and just check all those in kind of like a list to see like what is the bite that's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like on the bigger lakes, you'll have an idea like, okay, there's a shallow bite going on these sand flats. So then you just got to put in your time with your side imaging to find these groups. But yeah, that's a big one. Another thing I really look for in the fall is, and this could be related to your lake, is current. Walleyes
Yeah.
love current in the fall. And so like if there's pinch points, if there's islands, if there's rivers that flow in,
Okay.
that's always a classic fall pattern too. So yeah, those are some of my favorite fall patterns that I do. And as far as breaking down new water, for me, it's just to do my research. To
Yeah.
like see, okay, what is this lake? Is there any videos out there? Any forums? Is there anything? What kind of bite might be going on out there so I can have a little bit of an idea? Maybe talk to some people that have been out there. And then it's just kind of going down the list of like, here are the bites that I do see in the fall.
Yeah.
What's happening on this lake? Because some lakes will fish that shallow bite. Some lakes will fish that deep bites. And
Yeah.
oftentimes there's multiple of them going on. So yeah, that's a lot of what I'll see when I'm going to like break down um, new water for sure.
Yeah. Dude, that's a really good explanation. And I think your knowledge of, like, again, your knowledge of what they're using, the structure that's around, maps, most importantly, that's where it really shines. I, I, my wife bought me a Garmin Striker this year, so I'm going to actually be able
Mm-hmm.
to chart and try to make a map of this lake.
Yeah.
I don't have one this year. The water was so clear in the spring, and with the drawdown, it took a long time for it to come back. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so it was 7 feet lower than it normally is at that time of
Mm.
year, and I could see 25 to 30 feet. And
Okay.
so it was so clear. It's usually pretty clear. Right now it's mucky because of how hot it's been and stuff. So
Yep.
there is a good chance for a shallow bite because, like I said, there is some flats that come up and some shoals around on some of
Mm-hmm.
the points that come off and things like that. So I'm kind of excited to try some of that stuff you're talking about and then relate those, start with weeds and then structure, that kind of thing. Because
Yep.
I'm telling you, the water was so clear I could see walleyes in 25 feet. They
Oh, so
wouldn't.
there are walleyes in that lake.
Oh yeah, it's loaded.
Oh, got it. Yep. Yep.
The crappie fishing, I've never specifically targeted crappies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because I've always bass fished and, like, if we're pan fishing, then we'll just catch them as a
Yep.
bycatch. But I think I spent 3 or 4 days crappie fishing, and between me and a couple friends, we caught over 200, 250 crappies
Yeah.
in a couple
Super fun.
days. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
fun. And they're all big, because like I said, it's a little gated, it's a private lake. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
like, uh, there's not I mean, there's plenty of people that are fishing it too, but I'm like, man, I want to figure these walleyes out.
Mm-hmm.
One buddy caught one while we were
Yep.
crappie fishing, but I've only ever caught one, and it's like, a little one, but there's some big ones in this lake. So
How
pretty
many acres is
interesting.
the lake?
So there's two lakes. There's one that's, I think it's 55 acres, and the other lake is 200 acres. So it's
Got it.
not,
Yep. So both small lakes. Yep.
yeah, it's small lakes. But they stocked it, so it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they haven't in quite a few years, but it's been stocked in the past, and guys are catching pretty. Um, One of my buddies did really well on walleyes through the ice this year.
Mm-hmm.
We had about
Yeah, a lot of those types of lakes can be like good winter lakes I found.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we had 6 weeks of ice, which is last year we didn't have any ice. It was too warm, so that's different. Like usually we get a couple weeks, but 6 weeks is a long time for
Yep.
here. But he figured them out, man, and he caught quite a few in the 26 to 30 inch range. So
That's awesome.
it's a decent lake for the walleyes,
Well, honestly, like, so that same type of thing, those walleyes will be there starting in the fall, you
Yeah,
know, like
right.
those locations that he was catching them in the winter.
Okay.
And then a lot of times what you can do is, again, maybe you need to piece some things together for the summertime, but like sometimes you can almost draw a direct line from where they're at in the summer to where they go in the fall and winter. And like and you see some sort of prominent, either a point or some weed beds or something, like they'll be in that. They move, but sometimes they can be pretty predictable. And one thing I forgot to mention, that's like, as far as presentation goes, one of my favorite things to do, and one of like the most classic big fish, but any fish pattern in the fall is, I don't know, I guess what you guys have for like minnows or like, but for us, if you
Yeah.
can get like big creek chubs,
Okay.
and you drag those around at like 0.5 on a Lindy rig, like that was like such a fun bite growing up. And I still do this even with forward facing sonar, but like you open up your bail and you just put your finger on the line
Uh-huh.
and you'll just slow drag and you'll like pull it. Like the classic walleye thought was the steepest break on some of these points or these break lines, and you drag your Lindy rig on there with a
Okay.
big creek chub. And that's like classic, like before forward facing sonar, that caught so many walleyes in the fall. And it's cool because you just hold that bail open,
Uh-huh.
you just let that thing pull. And those minnows are so big, we're talking like 3 to 6 inch minnows,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you feel them start moving when they're getting followed.
Yeah.
And now that with like live scope, I've been able to turn it back and like see what they're doing, and you can see them, they swim up to try to get
Okay.
away, but you have
Yeah.
your weight on there, so it's kind of keeping them down. So
Yeah.
these walleyes will follow. So you'll feel your minnow like starting to freak out, and you're like, "Well, I'm going to get bit," and then all of a sudden you just feel like, "Thump," and you feel that bite, and you let go of the line. Um, and sometimes, depending on the time of year, depending on what the bite's like, you'll let it sit for 10 to sometimes up to like 2 minutes because they just need to like slowly,
Get
like
that hook in
they're
their
just kind of
mouth.
hanging on it. They're just swimming around with it. They're kind of moving slow and they finally eat it, especially those big minnows. So that's kind of a fun bite. See, feeling those minnows like start to freak out and then just chump, they bite it. And
Yeah, that would be really
yeah.
applicable. That would be
So that's what I would do,
yeah.
honestly, especially on a small lake like that. I would just find like a 20 to 30 foot break line,
Mhm.
try to stay within that range, especially if you get like 25-ish or whatever, and just like slowly drag Lindy rigs. Like on a 55-acre lake, you could just do the whole lake, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And wherever you catch a fish, just mark a waypoint. And then pretty soon you're going to start seeing some patterns. And then, like you said, if you're able to start mapping it, like auto charting or whatever,
Yeah.
with your graph, then you can start piecing a map together. And then that'll like it's all about fishing is all about patterns, and
Yeah.
those patterns are usually able to be replicated on other lakes or other spots. So like once you figure out one area, like okay, these fish are hanging out here for this reason,
Yeah.
that's what I love to do is, okay, they're here because there's a transition from rock to sand. They're here because
Mhm.
there's a transition from rock to weed, or there's a steep break, or whatever it is. And now I take that, I see it on the map, and I look at the rest of the lake. What other things shape up like this?
Yeah.
Is there other areas that look? And then many times you go to that area and they're set up the exact same way. So patterns are such a huge thing. So once you start figuring out one pattern, it just like now it really opens up your eyes and you can put patterns together on other parts of the lake or even on the next neighboring lake or anything like that. So that would be an easy thing to do. And I know a lot of guys do troll shallow crankbaits in the fall.
Yeah.
I don't. That's not a bite that I've really gotten into, but I know it can be super effective. They'll let go, less than 10 feet on sandy flats, and they'll troll crankbaits, and you can cover water quickly. Um, and you can kind of piece some patterns together that way. But that can be also a very, very fun fall bite.
Yeah, that'll be an expensive bite for me because I'll lose them all on Christmas trees.
Oh, I suppose you have all your
Yeah.
yeah. That's a little different too.
Well, so
Mhm.
so the way this lake sets up is very similar to people that are fishing a couple lakes around me because there's a few natural lakes. There's a lot of man-made lakes. And like I said, the Corpse Engineer lakes aren't huge. There's one that's not too far that's 3,000 acres, I think, and the other one's like 1,500. So they're not giant lakes, but they're big for here.
Mhm.
And the one that's closest to me fishes like my home lake, other than it doesn't have nearly as much grass.
Mm.
The grass is new there. It's getting like milfoil and stuff in it now.
Oh, yep.
But it because of the drawdown, they draw it down so far in the winter, so usually the grass dies off and it takes a long time to come back. But whatever's growing there now has been a little resistant to that.
Mm.
So that lake shapes up like that. So fishing with a Lindy rig like that is very applicable to a lake like that around here.
Just find that weed edge and just
Yeah.
troll right along the weed edge or on those breaks.
But you can follow it all the way up north here. I mean, for me to drive up, like I love to fish New York lakes. Um, they fish a little bit different because they're kind of like big flat bowls, but some of
Mhm.
them get pretty deep too. The Finger Lakes, Cayuga, Seneca, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, Oneida is a really good walleye lake though, but you have all
Mhm.
those humps. And have you ever fished in New York?
No, I've never been over that neck of the woods, period. But just hearing some things and hearing some rumblings here and there of or people that have or yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of like, I would suspect that some of those lakes kind of shape up a lot like what you're fishing.
Yeah,
Where you,
those are from what I've heard is they are very similar to kind of like our bigger natural lakes that we have around here.
yeah. The important thing is what you mentioned about patterns is when I was fishing the crappies this spring,
Mhm.
because I could see 30 feet, I didn't know this lake was a good crappie lake.
Mm.
We were drive up and you see a brush pile and there's, I'll bleep the number out, but there's like 500 crappies on a brush pile. There's 3 Christmas
Mhm.
trees and 500 crappies.
Mhm.
And because you can see 30 feet, I can find a lot of Christmas trees that way, right?
Right?
There's a lot of people on this lake that aren't, or in general, a lot of people aren't fishing with even traditional sonar or down, they're
Yeah.
just out having fun. When you have eyes underwater like that or a map
Mhm.
that can help you, it's really amazing.
For sure. Yeah, that is like a lake that in the wrong hands on a small, if that one's a 55-acre lake or whatever, like they have Christmas trees. So like those crappies super susceptible to
Yeah.
being overfished.
Yeah.
If people had like if you have a dozen people on there with forward facing sonar,
Yeah.
they all know where the Christmas trees are within a couple hours, most likely.
Yeah.
And they're seeing all those, and they're not hard to catch once they're there.
Yeah.
And so like that is a situation where like, yeah,
Yeah.
there's some legitimate cause for concern of like, okay, how are we managing these resources? How are we, 'cause even if you're just going out and catching release, you have somebody that knows where they're at, and they go out 100 times a year,
Yeah.
and they're gonna naturally accidentally kill somebody even if they were catching release the whole time. So
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I
mm,
didn't spend a lot of time on the smaller lake. It it there's a lot of bass in the smaller lake, so I
mhm.
mean, I'm sure it's just as good crappie fishing. I like the 200-acre lake is a little more fun because you have a little more
More stuff, yep,
stuff to go around too. But
for sure.
um, what when you're breaking down a new lake, are you always starting with the same lure, or are you kind of do you just have a favorite that you pick, or you pick it for a reason?
One just depends on which of those patterns is happening. you
Yeah.
know, like that shallow sand bite that's going on in the fall. That's jig and minnow is like one of my favorite for that. Maybe jig and plastic, maybe jig and crawler. Suspended bite, that's going to be either a jig and crawler. I don't know if you paid attention much to the walleye world. Um, the jig and crawler is like king.
Yeah.
Like that's people have mentioned it even in like our videos. Like, oh, it'd be nice to see people fishing at something other than that. And it's like, well,
Wow.
it just flat out works.
Yeah.
I actually I won't tell this story because we have another competition series coming out soon, and I don't want to spoil anything, so we'll save that. But yeah,
Where can you find it when it comes out?
it'll this one will be on my channel. Yep. So
Okay. Good.
we just a little side tangent. We started doing these walleye cups last year. We filmed one, and we put it on each of our channels, and then the last period we combined it in one channel. We just like as we talked, we love the viewer experience better of like one video on one channel, and you get to see. And so we're just gonna take turns putting it on each of our channels, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
depending on who's editing it and whatnot. So that's a little side tangent, but we just like that viewer experience better. So that there will be, depending on when this comes out, I'm hoping to have those edited sooner rather than later. So it'll be
Cool.
Walleye Cup season 2 coming around the corner. Yeah, it's fun. So but yeah, jig crawler's been huge. So that can work on literally any of these patterns
Yeah.
just because it's no going around it. Whether people are in New York or fishing Lake Erie, like I think Dunkirk was just fished like Lake Erie out of Dunkirk, I think it was on the National
Yeah.
Walleye Tour. And like,
Mhm.
yeah, there's a lot of artificials and stuff that will work out there too. But like jig crawler can just be the deal. But a lot of times I'm using slip bobbers as well. Like if I'm around the weeds,
Mhm.
I'll use slip bobbers often when those fish are a little more stationary on some of
Mhm.
these deeper humps or any humps. I'll use a slip bobber, especially if these groups are schooled up a little bit and they're a little more finicky. So that's another go-to presentation. Obviously, the Lindy rig and a big minnow, like that's an awesome fall presentation. The other one that I haven't mentioned much, but I used to do it almost exclusively in the fall, even was reaction style baits like a puppet minnow or like those glide baits,
Yeah.
just ripping those
Like a
things
fluke
like
or whatever. Yeah.
all summer long. Those can be so deadly as far as just getting reaction bites, and you upsize from like the smaller size to a little bit bigger size in the fall because these walleyes typically are looking for a little bit bigger presentations.
Mhm.
As their metabolism starts to slow, they want a little bit bigger meal instead of like eating 100 small meals throughout the day. As the
Sure.
water temps, they're like, okay, we got to bulk up as it's getting winter, and our metabolism slowing, so they're looking for more of those bigger meals so they don't have to chase stuff around quite as much. So bigger presentations I typically do in the fall as well. But yeah, those are some of my go-tos. Jig and minnow is classic as well. But again, it just varies depending on the type of bite that's going on, like where they're located on
Yeah.
these maps. So it kind of depends on where I see them on the, like, as far as like the map goes, as far as the chart goes, and how they're set up, and then I'll fish it differently depending on how those fish are reacting, for sure.
Cool. Um, what's your best time of the day?
This is actually a couple of my videos I put out this year. It's so funny. Everybody, all the walleye people, first hour and last hour, like those are the only times you catch walleyes.
Yeah.
And maybe it's with a forward facing sonar thing, you're able to target these fish. in area ways you weren't before, so they're more bitey. But like even when I was guiding, you were forced to be out all day. Like
Hmm.
you didn't have a choice. Like these people are paying for 4 or 8 hours or whatever. Like you're just out there.
Right.
And so I don't know how many times it happened where there's one trip in particular I remember. We started out, it was like a nice 5 to 10 mile an hour breeze, just a little bit of chop, cloudy, misty, a little bit of fog. I'm like, these walleyes are going to be like, if I could ask for perfect weather for walleye fishing, this is what it is. We're in the
Uh-huh.
morning bite, like we're gonna crush. And I don't know if we got a bite. I was
Ugh.
seeing fish on my. I didn't have live scope at the time, forward facing sonar. So I was seeing them on like 2D. I was seeing them on side, and like these fish are around, they're just not biting.
Uh-huh.
So I was like, oh boy, I don't know what's going to happen if they're not biting in this. Like, this might be a long day. And of course, stuff cleared up and it got now midday and it's just sunny, got flat calm. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I better start thinking of some good stories or some good jokes or something because this is going to be a long day.
Want to
Like, we
switch to
missed our,
smallmouth?
yeah, like we missed our good bite window. And all of a sudden, these walleyes just started snapping. I'm like,
Wow.
what is going on? So I honestly do like that midday time frame on a lot of these lakes. Yeah, there is still those like early and late bite windows. Um, and I feel like as it gets closer to winter, I will say those do become a little more important. They seem
Uh-huh.
to navigate towards those low light windows more often. And then when you get into ice fishing into the winter, like those low light periods are honestly some of the only times you can get bit. The bite gets a lot tougher on these smaller
Okay.
lakes around here in the winter.
Yeah,
And so it's not even morning. Morning can be okay, like, you can catch fish still, but, like, that evening last hour is, like,
that's where it's at.
sometimes after dark as well. Yeah, that's, like, 90% of the walleyes I catch are in that time frame, and maybe that's because now that's 90% of the time that I fish now is when it's
Yeah.
in those bite windows, but I've tried midday, and it's just not the same. So, yeah, but, yeah, this time of year, I honestly don't mind going out midday. And there's certain lakes. Again, I've been blessed to be able to fish so many of these lakes a ton. So like I've learned that there's certain lakes that they consistently fish better at 12:30 in the middle of the day than they will at 6 a.m. when the sun's coming up. It's
Yeah.
so contrary to typical walleye belief. But so yeah, I like that midday time frame. Um, and it's the longest part of the day. I will notice like as the light changes, sometimes they'll move. So
Yeah.
they might be bitey on there, but they'll only be there in that area for maybe an hour
Right.
at best, where they're hanging out in those areas midday, often most of the day.
Yeah.
And so you can find them there and catch them there
That makes sense.
most of the day. So,
Yeah. It is such a kind of a confidence thing. You get to like 10 o'clock in the morning, you're like, yeah, the bite's done.
mhm.
And that's with almost all fishing. But I imagine it's a real confidence because everything you read about walleyes is
Yeah.
the angle of light or whatever.
Yep. They're phototactic. So they have those low light periods. They have such
Yeah.
an advantage over their prey because their eyes just see in low light so much better. And it's like, but it's really shaped the way again, going back to forward facing sonar, shaped the way how I think, because even like I was listening to a podcast. Have you ever heard of the Doc Talks podcast? It's by Gord Pizer. He's another
Yeah.
Canadian guy.
Yep.
And so I was listening to him and I think his nephew Liam. They had a guy on, and this is like documented, like biological studies, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like this is science, and they're just saying like if the walleyes, they'll retreat to the shaded areas, to low light, to that kind of thing, because they can even develop like cataracts in their eyes.
Okay.
And it's just bizarre to me because I see how many walleyes I catch out over open water midday when it's flat, calm, and sunny, and they're down 15 feet.
Yeah.
Like, I I don't know. I don't have an explanation for it because again, this is obviously anecdotal evidence versus like their more studied approach. But
Yeah.
like they have no cover around them. It's flat, calm, it's sunny, it's middle of the summer, and they're just roaming out there, not that far down underneath to get like shade from it. So I don't have an answer to it, but that has been a very
Yeah. It's
interesting thing
interesting.
I've been noticing as of late, and just kind of goes against your traditional walleye thoughts or walleye biology or whatever you might call it.
Yeah. That's very interesting. I guess we're at a point. I really want to hear. I want to hear a story from you because stories are fun, and that's kind of why we all
Mhm.
do this stuff. Is well, it's part of why I do it. So maybe something. The thing that's different about hunting and fishing is that fishing stories happen a lot more frequently.
Hmm.
Maybe just I want to hear something that stood out to you in your latest season, or maybe really any season. What fishing story stood out to you the most?
Mm,
It could be a big one, could be just a fun trip, whatever it happened to be.
that's a great question. There's a lot, obviously,
You
and
can tell as many as you want.
I will say one of my favorite things, trips, stories that I have done recently. Um, so taking a little step back, when I was guiding, I used to donate a trip every year to this organization called Angling for Life.
Okay.
Um, Basically, they have guides donate trips. They auction them off on this Facebook group, and the proceeds go to either Feed My Starving Children or International Justice Mission, which helps like the sex trafficking industry of like how to fight that, how to help
Yeah.
survivors, that kind of thing. So it's something that's kind of near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
And so I had donated a trip there. So I was in this Facebook group, and I don't know, it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Um, I was talking with my dad, and I was just like, "Hey, like, we should do a trip. Like, let's do something, a big trip one of these days." And you know, we didn't have any kids at the time, so I'm like, "We don't have kids yet. Like, that's coming around the corner soon. Like, you're not getting any younger. Like, let's not wish we had, and then never make it happen. Like, let's do something."
Yeah.
And so we were talking, yeah, yeah. So I was originally planning like a big Canadian fishing trip. And then it was right around the time of COVID. So there's like
Hmm.
a lot of question marks like the border and like, can you get across? Can you not? And just weird stuff going on. So I was like, okay, maybe check that off the list. And then I saw a guy, his name is Chemo Gabriel. He posted a guide trip for the Columbia River over in Washington, Oregon border there.
Okay.
If you know anything about that, there's like the biggest walleyes almost anywhere
Yeah.
come out of the Columbia. And so I was like, hey, this would be a super cool trip. And it was like not being bid on super high yet. I don't know if it's because most people are used to like the Midwest or like the Great Lakes. There
Yeah.
isn't much out west.
Right.
And so I was like, let's bid on this, Dad, see if we get it. And sure enough, we bid, we won it. And I was like, let's do this. And so I think it was 2 years ago, we flew out to Washington and fished with Chemo for like 3 days. And it was just, one of those things where I vividly remember my dad like taking me out a lot growing up. And I remember him saying things like, all right, I'm doing this to you right now. So when I get old and I can't do this anymore,
Yeah.
you gotta take me out. And obviously he's not old and can't do it anymore, but still I like that kind of rang true of like, I want to be
This
able to take
counts.
him
This
on.
counts.
Right. Yeah. So we went over there and did that. And my goal, which is kind of crazy, like Lake of the Woods is obviously a crazy fisher and we both fish it a ton. He still fishes it a ton,
Yeah.
but he had not caught a 30-inch walleye, which is obviously not an easy task. Like the 30-inch mark is so hard.
Yeah.
Depending on the lake that you're on, obviously some lakes is a lot easier than others.
Sure.
But he had not caught a 30-inch walleye. So like my goal was to get him a PB. Like that was literally my only thing. I wanted him to crack that 30-inch mark. And so we're there and we're fishing that first day. And it was a little bit tougher. I think it was later than what it typically is. Usually the bite was like happening by then. It was
Yeah.
kind of a late spring. And so it wasn't quite happening. We had been catching some fish, but nothing really. And then our guide caught one, a decent one. And they're just so thick. It was like 27 inches, but it was like over 10 pounds or something like that. It was just a
Oh,
giant.
that's fatty. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was our first day. And we're like, okay, yep. We still got 2 days. And the second day was better. We noticed these bigger fish were starting to move into the area. This is a couple years ago now, so I might be losing some details, but we ended up catching our guide Chemo. He caught a 30-incher that was like 12 and a half pounds or something like that, just a giant. Um, and then I caught a 30-incher that day that was like 11 and change or something.
Wow.
We had a handful of big fish and a couple cracking the 30-inch mark. And so it's like, oh, awesome. Well, my dad still hadn't caught one. And I'm like, oh, like, don't get me wrong, I love catching this, but I want him to get his PB like out of this trip. And
Hmm.
which is obviously a tall order. Like that's setting that bar pretty high,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
even on the Columbia River. And so the last day we went out and it was a little tougher bite again. We had kind of been um, catching a few here and there, but nothing big. And it was like an hour before we left, it was just the wind was starting to rip. It was getting kind of nasty. And my dad hooks into one. He's like, I think it's big. And of course we net it. And I didn't look that big right away. And I was like, this might be getting close to 30, Dad. Like this could be. So we get it out, and there's the skinny fish, which is like crazy for the Columbia. Like they're big.
Yeah.
And we get it out, we put it on the bump board, and it was 31 and a half. I'm like,
Nice.
what? Like, there's no chance. And so then there was a little bit of like I was so pumped for him. But for the longest time, I've been able to hold over his head that I have a bigger walleye than him. And I've caught a couple in like that 31 inch range, but I haven't caught a
Yeah.
31 and a half.
Oh,
And
no.
so I was like, now he has the biggest walleye in the family. Like this isn't okay. Like, so as happy as I was, I'm like, man, my bragging rights are going down here. So I was like, I was so jacked. That was like made the trip for me, is him catching that one. And it was like right at the buzzer, like where I kind of given up hope, and like,
Yeah.
so that was super cool. And that was just that spring was just a nutso spring for me in general, where it was like, I did something Canadian trip, and then I did that trip, and then I went like the week after that, I went over to Green Bay and fished with a guy named Warren Fisher. Warren Fisher. He's a buddy of mine that guides over there. First time going to Green Bay. So it was like one of those stretches where I'm like, that was so fun, but so
That's
nuts.
real cool.
So yeah, that was
that.
a super fun one. And awesome enough, my amazing wife got me a gift certificate to a resort called Baker's Narrows.
Okay.
It's up on, I think it's pronounced Lake Athapapiscow.
Okay.
Like giant lake trout country, like
Oh, cool.
lots of 40+ inch lakers out of there. And it's kind of been like a bucket list one that I wanted to go to. So she got me a gift card for that. And so now I'm like, ooh, getting the gears turning of getting up there and trying to figure out when I want to go up there and that kind of thing. So I'm kicking around, depending on how it's going to work out, because obviously I'm going to need a film when we're up there. So that complicates things. But I'd like to see if my dad would be able to come with on that trip too. Just trying to soak in some of these trips while we can. And yeah, so that's one story that comes to mind. That was just like kind of like one of those bucket list fun memories for sure.
That is fun.
Yeah.
All right. 3 places that you can do 2 things here. Since you are a hunter, from what I can tell, I want you to talk about 3 places you want to either fish or hunt that you haven't gotten to try yet.
That's a good question. There's so many. I mean, I'm sure you're the same way. There's like this endless list of like, this would be so awesome. And I will say, so on the hunting side of things, for the longest time, I did want to do an archery elk hunting trip. Me and my dad did an elk hunting trip to Wyoming when I was in college at some point. But I haven't done much hunting since. And I don't know, now I'm like so into the fishing thing that I have a tough time justifying a trip, especially now, like part of my job. So I have to do the filming thing. But I would say, so Athapapiscow, like up in that neck of the woods, was one of my bucket lists, like trips to go chase big lake trout. I love lake trout, and we just don't have much around here. I have to go into Canada or that kind of thing to chase anything or size. So that one I'm actually going to be able to do. The Columbia River was one, so that one I got to do. Tarpon fishing down in like Florida, that's on the list. And I was like halfway. There's a guy, God, what is his name again? He has it's a company called 10K Charters.
Okay.
He's actually originally from like an hour away from where I'm at, but he runs that charter service down there for tarpon in like the Marco Island area of Florida. So I was like this close to like going down there and trying to book a trip with him. But that's on the list. And so, yeah, up north, like these are very different, like up north in the middle of Canada for Lakers, down there for tarpon. And I would say going over to Europe or Xander.
Oh, that would be cool.
Would be wild too. I don't know. Are you familiar with any of Jay Seaman's videos?
I haven't watched any of his videos, no.
Okay. So he actually does a series. I see you're wearing a Meat Eater shirt. He does a series for Meat Eater.
Okay.
Called The Canadian Angle.
Oh, yeah. I have seen that. Yeah.
Yep. So he's like one of my favorite guys to watch. Obviously his video quality is unreal and cinematography is insane. But he did a video where he was over, it's like Denmark or something. Don't quote me on that, and they caught these giant Xander, and I'm like, that would be so sweet so those would probably be 3. One I'm hopefully going to get to do here soon, and then down south in doing Florida. Some tarpon, and then going over to Europe to chase some Xander. Those would probably be my 3 out of the thousands that I have.
Yeah, that's really cool. Do you ever watch that YouTube show Fly versus Jerk?
A little bit. So actually I've honestly mostly watched it to try to get like inspiration for like some of our competitions, like see how they do things, see how they set it up, so I haven't watched it a ton, mostly as like an analytical side, but it is interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's a great show. I've actually
Mm-hmm.
watched it from like season 3. I think I started watching it, and I usually watch. I don't know. I can't say that I watch every episode every season now, but usually I watch like, 4, maybe 4 or 5 of them. It's a cool format because they're all fishing different lakes, but man, those lakes are so beautiful there.
Yeah, like super cool.
And the pike are huge.
Yeah, it's insane. That's have you ever watched 39 Hours?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's I think where they got a lot of their inspiration from
Yeah.
was Fly versus Jerk. I think I was listening to a podcast with and Weeb on it, and that's what he was saying. He kind of got the gears turned for that. And honestly, that's why we started this Walleye Cup thing. Is like I love these fishing competitions.
Yeah.
Like Jay does the Outpost, and like there's all these like random fishing competitions, and we're very walleye centric. Me, Brett, and Nick. So we wanted to do a walleye centered one.
Yeah, that's cool.
They're always fun to watch.
Yeah, that format is really cool too. It's not just like who's got the biggest fish. There's like different elements that go into it. Can you tell me where obviously I know where to find you, but tell people where they can find you at.
Yeah. And everything I think is now TJ Erickson. For a long time, it was TJ's guide service.
Yeah.
Because I was promoting my guide service. And then that got confusing because I was still getting so many calls. And like, I was like, I need to make this change, but I can see in my search or like my analytics, like people are searching TJ's guide service. So like, I don't really want to give that up because that's how certain people are finding me because that's what I've become known by. So, but anyways, long story short, last spring, I think I finally pulled the trigger and changed everything over from TJ's guide service. Now it's either TJ Erickson or TJ Erickson Fishing. So on YouTube, it'll be TJ Erickson. Instagram, those are probably, and Facebook, those are probably the ones that I'm most active on. But like all the educational content is on YouTube under TJ Erickson. And yeah, more so, a little more life stuff going on like Instagram and like some of those kinds of things on the stories and sharing some pictures here and there and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's all of my stuff. It's a little easier now, just TJ Erickson.
Yeah. I appreciate you so much for coming on. This is a fun podcast. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. It's always fun chatting, fishing, hunting, outdoors, anything like that.
Yeah. And congrats on the little girl, man. It's cool being a girl dad.
Yeah, I'm learning lots. That's for sure. You said you had how many?
I just have one. She's 10.
1.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. It's an adventure. She's such a sweet little girl, but man, it's, I don't know. When I see friends that have boys, I'm kind of like, oh, I'm glad I have a girl.
There's definitely certain things. There's always like it'd be fun to have a boy. Do your little buddy, hunting and fishing buddy. Yeah. There's so many times I'm like, if it was a boy, it'd probably be more like me than my wife. And I don't know if I want that. Like, yeah, I hope they get more of my wife's characteristics.
Well, whenever I see these kids, I'm like, man, how do you keep them alive? Like,
right? They're wild.
How do you do it? Like,
right? They're wild. Little boys are crazy.
Well, I appreciate it. So, yeah, we'll keep in touch, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having me on again. It was fun.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to hit stop here, and then it'll just take like a second for it to upload, and I'll let you know when that happens.
Sounds good.
Well, that's a wrap InCamp. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Go ahead and check TJ out at his YouTube channel and his Instagram, all those places he told you to check him out. Leave us a review and a rating. It really helps the show. I want to know what you guys want to hear about, so please let me know. Got some cool things coming down the pike. If this airs on Tuesday, September the 2nd, if it happens after that, you've already heard it. But there's some new stuff, new and improved stuff coming for InCamp. So stay tuned. Whitetail season's almost here, so we got to talk about it a little bit, So stay tuned. This is InCamp Podcast.